Hi everyone and welcome back to Saturn Secrets. We are going back to the future with the first Mercury retrograde of 2021. This Mercury retrograde is falling in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign of progress, of the future, innovation, new developments in technology and insights in the collective and humanitarian values. And so as we're shifting into February, which is going to have a very hefty stellium in the sign of Aquarius, we are still experiencing a Mercury retrograde, a re-examination of all these new insights, all these new ideas, these innovations that we're having and have been having since the great conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter. As you develop your insights and your consciousness to what you want for your future and where you're going to be re-examining some of this. Aquarius actually rules the internet and technology. Slightly less the internet now because it has become quite commonplace and Aquarius is the future. Aquarius is typically where we see the new tech, the new advancements, the new technology. So with this Mercury retrograde, there could be some very unusual and interesting news about technology in the media if there's not already. I know that there's something about, I think it's GameStop. I don't quite understand it. So if anyone can explain it to me in the comments, go ahead. But technology issues are heightened under this particular transit. So back up your files as you usually would with Mercury retrograde. And don't forget that Mercury retrograde, Mercury is actually the trickster. So be careful of scamming, phishing emails, who you trust online, the payments you make online, backing up your data, etc., etc. All very heightened under this energy. But certainly there is a reevaluation of a future that's not quite happened. It's the insight into where we're going. And I was thinking about this in 2020. At the beginning of 2020, when Mercury was moving through Aquarius, the first Mercury retrograde of 2020 was in Pisces. But when Mercury retrograde was in Pisces, before that, Mercury was in Aquarius. And we were getting these insights, this information about how the future was going to look, but we didn't quite. Sometimes with Aquarius energy, we can sort of push it away because they have these insights into the future that can seem very abstract, very quirky, and very ill thought out. We can just anticipate that Aquarian energy can sometimes be imaginative and exaggerating, but actually Aquarius energy is that insight into the future, the just knowing. And so when Mercury is in Aquarius, and when it was in Aquarius last year, we had these insights into how the world was going to look. The news last year was surrounding the pandemic and the possibilities of what was going to happen for us all. You know, the idea of lockdowns, the idea of closing countries, this type of thing. And a lot of people didn't really listen because it did seem so unusual. It wasn't something we'd experienced before. And so the news this time around will be slightly different because we're having this retrograde, so it's not necessarily all completely obvious or above board, or it's not direct, but we're really evaluating our information. We're really reevaluating the information that we're receiving. We're reevaluating where we get our information. A lot of people with this particular transit may decide to take a step back from the internet, to do a social media cleanse, to step away from the news or all the information that we're ingesting online, because with so much in Aquarius, sometimes we can ingest too much. And a lot of the time, technology itself can help us advance our ideas, but sometimes it can block our creativity. If we're constantly feeding into the internet and the information that's coming at us, it leaves us little room to be innovative. So it's kind of a good time to strike a balance. So Mercury is going to be retrograde from January the 30th, 2021 until February the 20th. So it's retrograde in Aquarius for the hefty portion of Aquarius season, and it will go direct in Pisces season. We'll start retracing the steps and seeing how we need to progress forward. But until then, I'm going to go into what it means for each zodiac sign. And I'm going to start with Aries. Now, do look at your rising sign in particular for this. It is likely to be more accurate, but it can apply to your sun sign too. So, Aries rising. You're going to be quite introspective surrounding your friendships, your bigger connections. Where do you fit in? Your social side, the groups that you're a part of, your public presence, your visions for the future, your dreams. For some of you, it's more to do with friendship and community. For others of you, it's more to do with your long-term goals, your public presence, who you are in the world and where you fit. So you're really thinking in terms of how your identity fits with other people. Some of you may want to step away from an internet presence that you have. Some of you may want to devote more time to helping, to charity. There may be some issues come up surrounding being judged. You may have feelings of inadequacy in certain groups or in career, a fear of being judged by people. And any insecurity that comes up with Mercury retrograde is actually often because that's something that's unresolved. It's not just that Mercury retrograde can pull anything out of nowhere. It is our feelings about where we fit. For some of you, this may also manifest as friendships that you have lost touch with coming back, hearing from old friends, reconnecting with friends, and in many cases you will reconnect to realize that you had grown apart or that they don't fit in your life. Some of you may take a step back from certain groups of people, whether that's by leaving a job or whether that's by leaving an organization or whether that is by those organizations or jobs being postponed in some way. So Taurus rising, you're really thinking about your place in the world, how you're recognized, what your success is, your goals, the way that you define your success more than anything else. Who do you look up to as well? You might find that your mentors change with this Mercury retrograde. Maybe people that you really admired in the public eye, for example, have fall from graces. That can be quite common due to Mercury and Saturn being in the same sign. You're really considering your reputation. This is actually the house of world leaders. So for many Taurus rising in the public eye, there could be some changes in your career life or some tricky news to navigate if that's where your particular career is falling. But for others of you, you're redefining your relationship with your legacy, what it is that you want to leave behind, the goals that you want to set within your generation. What does your generation stand for? For a lot of you, this is going to be public service. This is going to be politics. It's going to be government, those type of areas, and really trying to find some change there. You could be really reevaluating what your life's work is. And for others of you, you could be reevaluating your philosophies and where you feel free, where you feel you really see yourself going, or what it is that you believe and how that's influencing the direction that you're taking. So a lot of you Taurus risings are going to be reassessing what it is that your values are. I do feel like for a lot of you, there's going to be much success in February, and this Mercury retrograde is just keeping you on that level of evaluating everything that you're doing, all the choices that you make, in order to make sure that they are aligned with your soul's purpose, not your personality, your soul's purpose. So Gemini rising, you are broadening your horizons. A lot of you are really thinking about the deeper meaning in your life. You're thinking about what it is that you're going after, the meaning that you have. You want to explore different meanings. You could be wanting to explore psychology. You could be wanting to explore your values, your moral compass. A lot of you are really facing the beliefs that have shaped you, particularly in childhood. And tapping into an energy that's bigger than you can actually make you feel safer. Tapping into a higher power, the higher self. A lot of you are connecting with your higher self. However you get there, I don't know. It could be therapy, it could be sharing, it could be traveling if that's available to where you are. It could be learning a language or picking up an old language with Mercury being in retrograde. But you're really, I think, Gemini, for you, taking on a new perspective and really figuring out where some of your perspectives are shaping your decisions and getting you results that you don't want, particularly for some of you in relationships and where you feel intimate and vulnerable with another person. There could also be a re-examination of power dynamics in a relationship and the way you go about trying to get power, or the way someone goes about trying to get power over you. And these are the type of areas where you're going to have to see a higher meaning and source a higher perspective You may be reading the book The Seat of the Soul and really reconnecting to your soul in your relationships, in your philosophies, and in your higher ideals. So Cancer rising. You guys are having a very interesting transit here because Mercury retrograde in the 8th house. You are really figuring out how to transform your life from the inside out in your relationship with power, particularly in your intimate relationships. You could be re-examining your financial relationship with a spouse or an ex-spouse. There could be issues surrounding shared resources. You could be finding out that you have more money than you expected or less money than you expected. But this is really a time for figurative death. The 8th house is figurative death. It's where we have a death of the ego, where we let something go. And I think for a lot of you, you could be letting go of a particular communication. You could be reassessing your intimate relationships. You could be letting go of an intimate relationship, or you could be diving deeper into some kind of practice, particularly in the occult, tarot or astrology, or just getting in touch with your witchiness might be something else that you find here, but something that empowers you. I think for a lot of Cancer risings, the main focus is picking up something in your life that empowers you and seeing what that actually is. And for a lot of you, you may find that what you thought empowered you initially is not what will empower you going forward. So there's a lot of introspection and a bit of healing through empowerment here. And some of you for sure will feel this in your relationships. There may be miscommunications. A lot of you will hear from an ex for whatever reason. You could hear from a past lover, a past spouse, etc. So Leo rising, this Mercury retrograde is happening in your partnership sector and how you feel connected to another person, how you connect to someone, how you are in a partnership, your purpose in a relationship. It's about cooperation and reevaluating just how balanced your relationships are and why you choose who you choose. So for those of you that are single, you could be doing a little bit of an audit, a little bit of an inventory on the people that you have coupled up with. That sounds so like Love Island, but the people that you have been in relationships with. And, for some of you, that can be looking at a current relationship and thinking, I could walk in their shoes a little bit more, or, I would like them to walk in my shoes a little bit more. But there's a lot of healing going on here in your relationships and really figuring out your support systems, figuring out where you fit in your relationships. And in some cases, through potential arguments or disagreements, you might see yourself in the eyes of another, and this could lead to epiphanies that actually bring you closer. The main point of this retrograde is learning how to relate with your partner or your future partner and how you want to be in a relationship. Some people will feel this is more to do with your health, your well-being. You could find some little health issues creeping up, showing you where your habits aren't working or where you're experiencing stress or where you need to change your routine. But for the majority of people, this will be surrounding your partnerships in business and in love. So Virgo rising, this is where you go to shine. Mercury is your ruler and it is retrograding in your 6th house, and you are the 6th house sign. So you're really reevaluating your habits. You're healing your day-to-day routine. You could be healing your relationship with food. You could be re-examining your relationship with food, with what you put in your body, the medications you take. You could be reevaluating your exercise routine. Meditation could be something on your mind. You could be wanting to pick up an old habit that has maybe slid by the wayside and really see where some of these habits have helped you in your life. You could be looking back at times where you were at your fittest or at your healthiest, or you felt your best, and you could realize that there were certain habits and routines back then that you can adapt now to get back to where you were and bring some of that forward. You might experience some changes with your co-workers. You might hear from an old co-worker. You might have some difficulties with co-workers. People could be quite bad at communication during this time. Emails could get lost in work. People could be not pulling their weight, and a lot of you will be reflecting on this and whether or not you're actually happy in your job, whether or not it leads you to your long-term goals, and whether or not you need to make some changes in terms of your health. So Libra rising, this is where you are reevaluating your romantic life in a big way. Some of you could hear from past lovers, some of you could be reaching out to past lovers, but for a lot of you, this is to do with creativity as well and playfulness. Some of you could be picking up an old hobby that really brought you joy, something that perhaps you thought, well, if I can't monetize it, I won't do it. You know, with so much happening last year in your 10th house, perhaps now you're getting into a healthier way of expressing yourself. You could be painting to express your emotions. You could be finding some kind of outlet for your emotions. You could be feeling particularly creative. You're really reassessing what brings you pleasure and where you sacrifice some pleasure in your life. This is also where you can take risks of the heart, but with Mercury retrograde, you're seeing where maybe you have put your heart on the line in a way that's not healthy, or where you have lost some enrichment in your life by trying to progress in other areas. This is actually a really beautiful place, but I often find that when Mercury retrogrades in this area, it's very much a time when you can feel quite vulnerable in relationships, and a lot of you could be finding new love in February due to all the Aquarian energy. So be gentle with yourself. You might feel very idealistic about somebody, but when Mercury goes direct, that can change. So be careful about letting your feelings run away with you, or away from you if that's what your emotional nature is doing for you. There could be some healing needs to be done in terms of your romantic life, and you could find that you're shutting down communication quite quickly with people. So try to keep that open. Because you're also re-examining how much courage you have going for what it is that you want in life that brings you joy, okay? Some of you will be experiencing this more so in the home, with family. You could be having some past issues come up with family, but for the majority of you, this is going to be romantic, and it's going to be playful areas that you're re-examining and really getting some interesting insights into your nature, and particularly your communication style when it comes to love and when it comes to romance. So Scorpio rising, this is where you get very introspective about your home, your family, and your foundations. This could be where you are finally healing some conversations with your family where things have gone wrong, or you're realizing how your past, your ancestry has affected you now. There could be a re-examination of the habits, the perceptions that you formed in your earliest life, and how safe these are making you feel. What does it take to make you feel safe? And how are these perceptions affecting your decisions now in terms of property, in terms of home, in terms of who you share a home with, and your opinions of family in your life? You're really re-examining these issues. You're ruminating on what they mean for you and what they mean for your future. It's funny that this sector that is Back to the Future is actually in your past, your past sector. So you could be feeling quite back and forth, almost as if you're going between timelines. At points, you could be very thoughtful about your past. You could be hearing from people from the past, old friends. You could be reconnecting with estranged family. But a lot of you are evaluating as well what your home looks like, how your sanctuary feels. You might want to redecorate. You might want to paint the walls, paint the ceiling, get a new wardrobe, whatever this is. You're really figuring out how your sanctuary makes you feel and how the energy in your home is. Because if the energy in your home is off, being a water sign, that can really affect you. This is also your sector of intuition, so you might have some miscommunications. Your intuition could be a little bit off with Mercury here. You could find that it feels very strong and you're on to something, but you might go down the wrong path. So think and think again before you go off on a tangent that you think is based on intuition, because there is a chance that there could be some miscommunication for you guys. So Sagittarius rising, you're very introspective about how you communicate, the messages you've been receiving in life. Some of you could hear from just about anybody because of Mercury retrograde in the 3rd. There's so many people could reach out to you from the past. You could be reevaluating how you communicate, what messages you receive. Some of you could be picking up a book you were writing. You could be deciding to write a book. You really want to share your ideas. You might find that you have some blockages in sharing your ideas, but those are designed to make you reevaluate just how your communication style actually is. For some of you that are experiencing delays in communication, it might not be that you're not meant to do it right now. It's more to do that you're reevaluating what it is that you're saying and what it is that you're writing. So with Mercury retrograde here, before you go to speak or before you go to write an email, think and think again, because when Mercury's retrograde in the third house, it can really be where communications go awry and things are just not received well. So this is where you can think of your communication style. Maybe you could be a little less blunt, or maybe you could be a little bit direct, a little bit more direct, but whatever it is, this is really reevaluating your communication style and your listening style, because you're going to want to take a more logical approach, and Mercury can make that really very difficult. So Capricorn rising, you are having your reevaluations in what it is that you value, what it is that you put your most worth into, how worthy you feel, how you feel about your finances, how you feel about your self-worth, your self-care, how grounded you feel, and your financial independence or financial freedom of their or lack thereof. You're reevaluating. I knew Mercury retrograde was going to catch up with me eventually. You're reevaluating what it is that you own, how much you own, claiming ownership of the self, claiming what it is that you value, what your possessions in your life mean to you, how they enhance you or how they stress you out. A lot of you could be doing a decluttering with this energy. You could be getting rid of old clothes, you could be selling old clothes, you could be looking more at antiques or vintage items, or reassessing how much you possess that actually accumulates in wealth, whether it's art or whether it is stock, etc. You're really figuring out what possessions or financial situations you have that bring you wealth and what is actually draining your wealth. So it's a great time to have a little look back over your books, a little look back over your income, your taxes, this type of thing, although taxes is more 8th house, but really a good time to get on top of your financial situation and reevaluate where some of your money is actually going out unnecessarily. So Aquarius rising, this is your house. So you're really considering who you are. There's a bit of navel gazing going around here. You're figuring out what comes naturally to you. You're figuring out what makes you who you are, the energy that you have, what your vibration is, how you're moving amongst the world. Some of you could really want to reinvent who you are, but with Mercury being in retrograde, be careful. Just getting a new haircut could actually go very wrong when Mercury's in retrograde, albeit that's more Venus. But, before you change who you are, try and evaluate what your soul actually is saying to you. Do you feel like changing your outside is what matters, or do you feel like changing what's inside matters? This is your sharpest focus of reality. So you may want to change your identity, you may want to change your ego, but remember that planets are actually very positive in the first house. Even if it's Mercury retrograde, you're giving more time to yourself to consider who you are, what it is that you want, and there's a lot of luck there when it's in your sign. But sometimes when Mercury retrograde's in your sign, you can get into these really dark corners and figuring out where you're losing your light, or where you feel a little bit awkward about yourself or a bit uncomfortable about yourself, or where you're keeping certain things hidden, or where you're being detached from other people. So you're connecting very deeply to you. You're really reflecting on who you are and the energy that you want to put forward going forward. You could also feel a desire to reconnect with people from the past. So it could be you reaching out to people that you've lost touch with, or picking up old hobbies, or things that are part of your identity, or a part of your identity in the past that you maybe left or lost because there was a lack of sense of self. You maybe felt like you were losing yourself there. So this is a really interesting time for you, and you could feel more psychic, you could feel more compassionate, you could feel more drawn to the collective and feeling whole and feeling part of something as well, if that is part of your identity. But this is a fantastic time to really do a bit of navel gazing and figure out just who you are. And just remember that February is a very lucky month for you, but with Mercury retrograde, it is asking you to carefully examine the choices that you now have a platform to make. And finally, Pisces rising, my fellow Pisces risings. This Mercury retrograde is incredibly introspective because it's happening in a very psychic side of the sky for you. Your spiritual connection, your higher self, your subconscious blockages. So a lot of you could be picking up old spiritual habits. You could be reading books that you've read before on the law of attraction. You could be reading new books. You could really be doing a bit of a soul's journey. You could be looking into topics such as astral travel. You could be looking into astrology. You could be looking into tarot, really trying to connect with something that is unseen, your spiritual connection. And you may figure out where some of your spiritual connections have actually become very blocked. And this is quite a healing time for you, because it can help you see why certain things are turning out the way that they are. Some of it's coming from within you. And this is a beautiful time to do some shadow work, or lean into how your body is feeling, how safe you feel in the present moment. Your dreams could be more vivid. You could have more insights. You could be more psychic. So for those of you in psychic professions or alternative healing, that type of thing, you could have some amazing insights here, because Mercury retrograde is actually heightening that. For some of you, you could also be considering, you could be reevaluating your friendships, your community, the communities that you're part of. But for most Pisces rising, this is a time when you're really looking at your inner self, your inner world, and how you feel about it. Some of you could actually be ditching some spiritual practices that have become toxic for you or are making you feel unsafe or unhappy, and you're feeling lost in. Some Pisces could be experiencing a bit of a dark night of the soul at the moment, where you're really figuring out for yourself just what it is that you believe in. But oftentimes with that type of energy, the darkest part comes before the dawn. And in February, Pisces, you're really reconnecting to the spiritual feelings that make you feel part of who you are. They make you feel more like yourself. They make you feel connected. And a lot of the time, connection to the divine is what makes Pisces and Pisces rising feel safe. So this is a beautiful time for healing. Do that shadow work, and don't be afraid to look into the past a little bit. Just don't get stuck there. But feel entitled to feel deeply what it is that you felt in the past, in order to heal from it, in order to move forward for your season, which is coming in February. Don't forget, Jupiter's moving into your sign at a point this year, and then it will move back next year. So you're getting a couple of goes, Pisces, at one of the luckiest transits. So that's all I have for Mercury retrograde for all the signs. I hope you have a blessed Mercury retrograde, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.